Hello, today we're looking at the article a, right? A or a, before actually words that start with an H, right? And Merriam gives you a new entry, right? An explanatory box about the usage, right? And here you in the beginning you find what you usually find in different books explain the use of a and an, but here it says before unstressed or weakly stressed syllables with initial H, both a and an are used in writing. So you say a historic or an historic. In the King James Version of the Old Testament and occasionally in writing and speech, an is used before an H in a stressed syllable, right? An huntress or an huntress, an hundred. Children are an heritage of the Lord. Of course, that's the Bible, right? While Oxford does not provide an explanatory box for this usage box, the Oxford Lexical Dictionary does, right? I would like you to know that when you pay attention to one of these usage boxes, they have somehow ditched the use of italics when you need to single out a word. Is it a historical document or an historical document? A hotel or an hotel? I should have said an historical. There is still some divergence of opinion over which form of the indefinite article should be used before words that begin with H and have an unstressed first syllable. In 18th and 19th centuries, people often did not pronounce initial H. This H should be in italics, right? The same here. So what they're trying to explain is actually that some people do. And this is what Fowler explains, right? So now I'm going back to the notes on Fowler. We are on the very first page, A, right? And the first entry tells us that we should not forget that a and an actually come from one, and this is visible in give me a glass of water, right? We're going to go directly to point number 3, which explains at first what we know, right? That how we use a or an, depending on whether the word starts with a vowel or a diphthong, right? And tells us before a syllable beginning in its written form with a vowel, but pronounced with a consonantal sound, a is used. The examples are a eulogy, a unit, a use. Notice that those are semivowels, right? The ya, and a one, wa, and a once only, right? Before all consonants except silent H. So a book, but with H that is not silent, a history, a home, a household name, a memorial service, a puddle, a young man, blah, blah, blah. But with silent H, we use an hour, an honor. So if the H is not silent, a history, a home. If the H is silent, an hour, an honor. This is what you knew so far about the use of a and an before an H. But now opinion is divided. And so what is your opinion about the use of a and an? Yes. And this is regarding the use of a or an before words that start with an H, in which the syllable is unstressed, right? The others were stressed. Our, honor, history, home, right? They were stressed. But what happens with habitual, heroic, historical, Homeric, and hypothesis? Well, Fowler, no, remember, Birchfield tells us the thoroughly modern thing to do is to use a. So this is modern, right? This is how you learned it. A habitual, a heroic, a historical. But, he says, do not demur, that is to say, do not disagree if others go with an historic, an horrific, right? An hotel is now, he says, old-fashioned, right? But an historic, an horrific are normal today, right? What I am trying to say is that though clearly this is not frequent, it happens, right? So remember that the problem is when the H is unstressed. So it may not be pronounced, or it may be aspirated very, very lightly, and you will go an historic, right? I'm sure you've seen that. With herb in American English pronunciation, that changes because simply you say an herb in American English because herb, in herb the H is not pronounced, whereas in British English the A is pronounced. So you speak of a herb, right? Because you pronounce that H. Finally, from this entry, well, that's all, sorry, from this entry. Actually, I wanted to draw your attention to point number 5, right, where you find uses of many, such, and what with a. Many a year, such a family, what an awful nuisance. Sorry, these are emphatic uses, right? How tiresome a person she would be, right? She is very tiresome, right? Further ahead, too strict a regime, as opposed to a too strict regime. At quite an early hour, or at a quite early hour, right? These are possible uses, though we tend to go with the least emphatic, right? At a quite early hour, right? All right. From point number 6, right? A good few. Be careful, this means a considerable number. So a good few showed up means, well, quite a few. Many, you would say many, right? In translation. Point number 7, I am picking up one example. I once knew a Lucy Jones. This is the English way of saying una tal Lucy Jones, right? Then in point number 8, Birchfield introduces the case of an unacceptable use, but I wanted you to see that people are saying things as a apple, a interesting, a ultimate, which is very odd, right? But this is something he says in unscripted or scripted speech, as you say, when somebody has told somebody else what to say. But the point is that this is attested, right? That they have heard these people using this, right? Which is ungrammatical, you could say, or unacceptable or non-standard, whatever, right? Okay. Point number 9 is about what he calls the grammatical oddity, right? 1,000 selected men, a dozen eggs. The thing is that we're using nouns of multitude, and people will say an estimated with an adjective, right, in between, an estimated 200 youths, or an astonishing 30 feet wide, right? He just singles out this as being something odd, right? But don't worry. What I really wanted to know is a rule for the H and how to pronounce it before, when it is at the beginning of a word and when it is unstressed, right? So the idea is that people are saying anomeric, anhistoric, I think the honorific, right? And that would be normal in the use of English, though the most frequent use is the one you already know: a habitual, a heroic, a historical, a Homeric, a hypothesis, right? And remember that an hotel, right, will be old-fashioned. Okay, that is all.